No religion is better than any. To put it another way, religion sucks. What does it suck? It sucks the mind out of the brain. Is there a difference between the mind and the brain? That's not going to be the point. The point is, religion is killing us. It is killing us slowly and methodically and making us into slaves. And how do they do this? Well, most people are willing believers. They like to accept whatever the leaders tell us. And if we go back a few million years, maybe this was the way it was. We were a tribe, tribes running around on the planet, looking out for dangerous animals and looking for animals to kill and food and whatnot. And one of the things we did, of course, was stand up and look around. And those who were most curious did the most standing up and looking around. And they saw the most things. And probably they said to the other people, hey, here comes a big animal, dummy up, we got to do this and this. And another thing you got to know is there is no such thing as holy men. There are men who have a will to power. Perhaps you've heard about Nietzsche. But there are other people like Darwin and a few people. I mean, of course, it isn't the only thing we are. But it is very normal for someone who is a little more clever than the rest of them to perhaps use the rest of them to his advantage. And religion has been a part of this scheme to get people to do what the overlords want them to do. And so what we had at the beginning of our civilization, or probably the end of our civilization, we probably were more civilized before we started getting civilized, which seems backwards, but before we get too organized, we were probably more civil with one another because we didn't have a choice. We had to be how we were because survival demanded it, and we had to go around killing animals that were going to be scary or things we got to eat. And it wasn't the only way we ate food, obviously. We weren't only meat eaters. We would eat berries and fruits and vegetables and whatnot. Well, the ugly truth is that we're not really that intelligent yet. There are some intelligent people. I mean, there's probably been a few in the history. Most of our great theologians were liars, and many of our philosophers were stumped by simple things. So we're just getting to a point now where we're starting to figure out even that the universe exists, and that has just come around recently. Before we were like the fish, we knew our environment, but we didn't know there was an outside world. But now we know this, and it changes everything, because now we're no longer the center of the universe. We're just a very, very small part of the universe. But that doesn't even matter. What matters is what we do with our lives here on the planet. And God, this concept of God, came into effect just about the same time tyrants came into effect, and they used religion. It wasn't their only tool. The other tool was the sword, or sticks made out of knives, out of bones or whatever. Weapons. Weapons were the first tool, and religion is, I like to quote John in the Revelation. He liked to call religion the prostitute of the war machine. And that is what religion is. Religion is the prostitute of the war machine. And there's nothing wrong with prostitutes, but there's something wrong with religion when it says that it is the one true God religion. And I don't know how many religions there are anymore, but in the Western world we have three main ones. The one based, they're all based on the Torah, the original story of Abraham selling his wife, half-sister, out to kings so he can get rich. So she was the prostitute, although she didn't choose to be the prostitute. He was the boss, and back then it was the law that said man was the boss. That was probably the beginning of our downfall, was to say that man was the boss. And before then it was probably more likely that we did things because we had to do things, and the woman was part of it. And she would have been an equal part, and she probably would have been more valuable than the man, because if you lose a few men in a battle fighting an animal, it's not a big deal as long as the women stay alive, especially the ones who can still bear children. And of course, even this doesn't matter anymore, because we have enough children on this planet, and we have enough old people on this planet. And we should actually start sending condoms to Africa, because you cannot tell people to stop fucking. Because if they don't want to stop fucking, they will not stop fucking. And if you don't give them condoms, all they're going to do is spread diseases around and become a desperate land or country or continent. And it's not going to help anyone because they're not going to like being there anymore. And then they're going to want to go somewhere else. And the same thing is happening with the Middle East or the Far East or anywhere that isn't affluent. People are starting to get really desperate and starting to take their desperate nonsense somewhere else. And right now in Europe, there's a big tendency towards this Allah shit. I mean, who the hell is Allah? Allah is one of these... Well, wait a second.